going live. So it's DJ Proclaima. If you are familiar with my channel, you know that I'm a gospel reggae DJ and been playing gospel music for the last 20 years. I've literally just finished work today and I'm taking time out. I'm having a hot drink. I'm in my car and taking a moment to chill. I've got a client call very shortly. I'm going to speak to somebody about the business that I'm in. And what am I doing right now? Well, just sitting here. I've watched a load of people doing lives on YouTube talking a bunch of garbage, to be fair. And I thought, well, okay, I got something we could talk about. So I thought we could talk about God. All right. I thought we could talk about God. If you think about it, it's the age-old question for a lot of people, right? Is God real? Is God not real? Is heaven real? Is hell real? And, you know, in this day and age that we live in, a lot of people just dismiss it, right? So they say God's not real. You know, it's not real. It's all fantasy. It's all made up. Well, if that's the case, then really you should pity anybody who's any kind of Christian or any kind of got any faith, because they're just believing in nonsense, right? But the other side as well, just thinking about this, just thinking outside the box. If God is real, then really understanding that for yourself has got to be the most important question that you need to answer in your life. So let me just talk to you for a little moment about that, okay? So is God real? Okay, so how do we determine that God's real? Well, first of all, the Bible tells us that creation itself, it witnesses and testifies about God's existence. So it says in the Psalms that the heavens declare the glory of the Lord. Day by day they pour forth speech. I was listening to a statistic today that they've discovered a sun in another solar system, that our sun, which is massive, by the way, can fit in this other sun 100 times, more than 100 times, all right? There are planets and galaxies and heavenly bodies that scientists will talk about, but really they have no clue what it's about, why it's there. So it speaks of a creator. It speaks of a divine being. Big up, let me shout my fans, man. Tay Sansi, blessings to you. Lily Angela's on the call. God bless you. Nathaniel Franklin. You know me, guys. You know I'm going to talk about the Lord, right? So here's the thing. If you don't think about creation, if you don't think about if you don't sit down and take it, remember the time when Jesus was talking about consider the lilies of the valley, consider the birds of the air. He's saying that because he wants you to know that creation itself witnesses about the reality of God. Uganda in the building, I see you. So we understand something of God through creation. So what are the alternatives? So the big secular theory going around is what's called the Big Bang Theory, okay? And there are massive problems with the Big Bang Theory because, first of all, most of us know that when there's an explosion, it actually destroys, it doesn't create, okay? It doesn't create, it does the opposite, it brings about destruction. So the theory is that there was this matter and it kind of exploded, and from that we got the kind of elements of creation, and it kind of all came together and formed everything that we see and know. But the other problem with the Big Bang Theory is the stuff that exploded, where did that come from? All right, so that needed to be created, that needed to come from somewhere. That makes sense, right? So people who talk about Big Bang Theory, when you ask them questions like, well, the very first stuff, the matter, the antimatter, whatever you want to call it, who created that? Where did that come from? That's where their theory falls down, because of course they haven't got an answer for it. Furthermore, if you look at the complexity of all existence, everything that we understand, if you look at the complexity of everything, even very simple things have a level of complexity that are more sophisticated than a Swiss watch. So like if you look at your hand, right, and you look at the vein structure, the bone structure, the tendons, the way that your hand reacts to your brain's instruction just to pick things up, you know, it takes an absolute genius to create that. In fact, right now they're trying to replicate stuff, aren't they? So Tesla, what's his name, Elon Musk, and all those guys, the Chinese, you know, they're on this big search to try and recreate humans in the form of robots. And they've got these things which they kind of shape like humans, and they say, look at this, but it's nowhere near the complexity that is required to do some of the very basic things that we do. You know, as I'm talking to you, I'm breathing, my heart is pumping, my eyes are blinking, there's all sorts of things happening in my body, and that's all built by a genius God. It all works together. It all works together. So if you look at the Big Bang Theory as an idea of where we all came from, it really does not hold water. And I understand that people who, they like to use this phrase, especially during I'll be careful how I put it so I don't get blocked off, but the recent big event that we went through, they kept saying follow the science or listen to the science. Well, scientists have always historically got things wrong. You know, it used to be the prevailing scientific view that the earth was flat. So all the leading scientists at that period, when that was the main belief, felt that the earth was flat. That's what they believed. All right, that's what they went with. Well, it turns out they were wrong, right? So scientists can get it wrong. All right, scientists can get it wrong. But here's another big thing to say to you guys, which I think is at the core of a lot. And I know we got a pastor on here, Angela. I see you there, Chanda. God bless you from Zambia. I think that the reason why a lot of people reject the Christian message in the Bible is because it holds you to account, doesn't it? There's a moral accountability. If you begin to accept what the Bible says, all of a sudden you come under conviction for the way that you live. You are challenged about things that way that you live. You know what? The Christian faith is not an easy faith to follow. There are faiths out there that tell you that as long as you're a good person, that somehow you will end up in eternity. You know, you'll end up in a good place in eternity. Whereas the Christian faith doesn't do that, does it? It tells us that every single one of us has fallen short of God's standard. So it doesn't matter how good your grandma was. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how good you are when you compare yourself to other people. What really matters is what God says. And God says that every single one of us has fallen short and missed the mark. So that's hard for us to see when we look at it from a human level, because when we compare ourselves to each other, you know, when I compare myself to somebody, you know, like Adolf Hitler, or, you know, one of these kind of crazy people that have done horrendous things, I think I'm a pretty good guy. But the problem is, comparing myself to another human is not the way to do it. It's comparing myself to God. All right. When I look at myself in the light of God's holiness and his purity and his beauty, I fall short. I miss the mark massively. And all of us are in the same boat. All right. So what did God do about it? Well, I think God, for me personally, I think God is outrageous, and I think God is unreasonable. And I want you to bear with me. Let me explain. Okay. Because God doesn't need us, all right, to be self-sufficient and to exist. All right. We need him. And God didn't owe us anything. Okay. And this is where I think he's outrageous. The fact is, he sent his one and only son. He sent his one and only son. So right from the outset, God sent the best. He didn't cut corners. He didn't, you know, how can I put it? There was no compromise in what God did. God sent the absolute supreme being, the sovereign one, the Son, the King of all kings. He sent his son, Jesus. And Jesus came and he laid down his life for us. So that means basically Jesus, he accepted the guilt and the punishment for us on the cross. He took on himself the punishment that was due to you and the punishment that was due to me. That's big. Okay, so through his blood, And through his sacrifice, through his death and resurrection on the cross, we now have a hope. We now have a hope. But in all of that story, what we have is a demonstration of the size of God's love for us. You know, today you might be listening to this and you might not love yourself. You might not have a high, what's the word? You might not have a high opinion of yourself. But let me finish this live by saying this. But I want you to know that God loved you enough to send his one and only son, that if you would believe in him, you would not perish, but you would have everlasting life. Go and look up John 3:16. Go study it for yourself, and I'll catch you on the next one. God bless you guys.